This video is about how to go viral with storytelling editing. So if you're a beginner short form video editor who's either building up a TikTok affiliate theme page or you're editing short form content for clients, please pay attention to the information I'm going to share with you for the next 30 minutes. Essentially, I just finished doing a call where I was leading an affiliate team for an organization known as New Money. I was leading the call, I lead the team with a few other people, and essentially I share the principles, tactics, practices, frameworks, ways of thinking, and methods that I've used to go viral with storytelling, short form based editing. If that is something that you're interested in to get results for your clients, to get results for your own TikTok page, please pay attention to what I'm about to share. Get yourself a pencil, get yourself a notebook, get yourself some water, because this is going to be something you really want to take seriously and apply. That said, here's the recording. Enjoy. Storytelling. The reason why this is important, I'm going to talk to you about how I actually came up with this. So basically, since I began video editing, I've used a lot of B-rolls, a lot of sound effects, all these things. And I've had people in the past, they would be like, James, you use very good storytelling in your B-roll, in your videos, stuff like that. It's not something I really consider that much because I just thought it's just simply editing. But when people start pointing out certain things about your editing, that's when you need to know that you need to focus on that. I mentioned this yesterday in the call, but I'll just say it again. If you get comments like on your TikTok videos, or say you work with like projects or people in the future, whatever, and they comment on certain things about your work, make sure you focus on that because that means there's something unique about it. So basically, I had a bunch of people in comments as well as like TikTok comments, also people I worked with in the past. They basically be like, James, there's a lot of storytelling in your videos, storytelling, editing, whatever. And basically, I was kind of wondering what that actually means, but it's quite simply the following. So, when it comes to storytelling, like I said, all storytelling is just describing a sequence of events, how you got from A to B, telling it in a certain way. So when it comes to storytelling with short form content, there's a few things I like to do. I like to do visual effects. So once again, I'll put VFX. That's basically the same thing. It just means visual effects. I also like doing SFX. That's another way to do it. Also, music. And that's another way to use storytelling. Pacing. That's another way to use storytelling. Color grading as well. That's a form of storytelling. One, two, three, four, five. Yeah, I think we'll just focus on those ones for now. So, yeah, let's basically get into it. Storytelling. First one, VFX. So what this basically means is visual effects, what is going on the screen. The way I do this with my videos is the following. I like using contextual B-roll. So this is something I've talked with you guys a lot about, especially if you were in the earlier calls. For example, the call is in December. Contextual B-roll is essentially showing B-roll of things that are happening as it's being said by the speaker. So for example, if Hassan in a clip, he's saying like, I was driving my Ferrari today, you would show B-roll of the Ferrari. Or if he's like, today I'm driving my 488 Spider, whatever, you would show the 488 Spider. Now, somewhere where a lot of you guys get kind of wrong is the fact that you guys would just, somewhere you guys would get wrong is the fact that you guys would just show B-roll of just random stuff. And it's like, it just gets kind of like, why are you doing that? Which goes back to what I was saying yesterday. You want to have intention behind your videos. You want to be intentional with the editing. Because you notice all the big accounts on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all the social platforms, you're going to keep seeing it time and time again, that there's a reason behind why they do certain things. So until you guys actually understand being contextual, being intentional, then a lot of this is not going to make any sense. So hopefully by the end of this call, before we get into questions, you guys start changing the way you do things. If you're not changing what you're doing, how can you expect to get different outcomes? So keep this in mind. Contextual B-roll, that's something I like doing when it comes to the storytelling for my videos. And then basically another thing I like doing as well is I will add things like transitions. That's one way to tell a story. Because like I said, all you're doing with storytelling in short form content is you're just describing a sequence of events. You're describing how something is going. That's all it is. So I like doing this with contextual B-roll, with transitions. What else I like doing? Transitions, overlays. That's another way, because overlays can provide a certain feeling towards the actual like segment of that video. And what's one more thing that I could say that you guys can do? Transitions, overlays. In fact, let me look at my editing pack right now. See what I use, which I hope you guys use in the video editing pack. That's very important. So yeah, actually we'll just keep it there. Transitions and overlays. Keep those in mind. Those are in the video editing pack. So make sure you guys check them out because it's very important to use if you actually want to tell a better story with your videos. And transitions, for example, these could be like the film burns and lights leaks. These are all in the pack. And overlays, these can be like the grain footage. I've seen some of you guys use this grain footage, as well as what's the other footage so you guys use, like dust overlay. That's a very popular one nowadays. It gives more of like a vintage look towards it. So yeah, I recommend you guys do that if it comes to actual VFX for your videos. So, and like I said, VFX, all it is visual effects. So yeah, that's basically VFX. That's like part one of storytelling. I usually start my videos VFX. That's like part of my process. Then next thing you could do is SFX. All that means is sound effects. But like I said yesterday, you want to really be conscious of the way you're using sound effects. The reason being is because you don't want the sound effects you're using, for example, the whoosh sounds, the camera clicks, the lightning, whatever, like any of these sound effects you use from YouTube, you don't want them to take away from the actual video. You don't want them to distract the viewer from the message. Otherwise, they're kind of wondering what they should focus on. And then they just kind of get distracted. They don't want to watch anymore. So when it comes to SFX, a few things you want to keep in mind. Make sure decibel audio is, so make sure decibel audio is less than speaker audio. So you want to make sure it's less than speaker audio. Something I've noticed with some of you guys' sound effects is it's way too loud and it just gets kind of obnoxious to keep listening to. So make sure it's complementing the speaker. It's not overpowering the speaker. You don't want it to overpower, you just simply want it to complement them, what they're saying. So make sure it's just less than the speaker audio. But I'm gonna put a but right here. But I say either, how do I do it? Yeah, either matching or a little louder than music volume. Okay, so when it comes to sound effects, once you actually put the music, you might come to realize that the speaker's audio is good, the music is good, but then when you start to add the sound effects, like the click sounds, all that stuff, you might start to realize that it's a little too quiet, so you actually can't hear anything. So make sure that the audio, it's properly adjusted, so it's just like lower than the speaker, so it doesn't become obnoxious, but where it's a little higher than the music, so you can actually hear what's going on. Because what's gonna happen is once you actually put the video into TikTok, I don't know how it really works exactly, but just from my experience, I've noticed that when I import videos onto TikTok, sometimes the sounds will actually be less than what I was hearing while I was editing the video. So it's kind of weird the way it works. So just make sure the sound effects, it's less than the actual like speaker volume, but a little higher, so higher than the music volume so you actually hear it. So just keep that in mind. Okay. And also, another thing to talk about when it comes to sound effects, which is actually going to link towards this point right now. Music. All it is simply emotion. So when it comes to sound effects, when it comes to music, any of these things in the video, all it's for is to evoke a certain type of emotion. When you use certain sounds in your TikToks, you really want to make sure that they evoke a certain emotion, that they draw out a certain feeling to the viewer. The reason for this is quite simple. It's because that really is just the purpose of music. If you think why you actually listen to music, there is a reason behind it. You don't just listen to music for the sake of listening to music. Maybe subconsciously you're thinking of a certain type of emotion, certain type of feeling, and this specific song, this specific piece, whatever, it can express that feeling, that emotion, hence why you listen to it. It's the same thing when it comes to short form content. You want to evoke a certain emotion in order to tell the story better. Otherwise, the video is going to be kind of stale, and that's where someone would not want to watch the video. So just keep that in mind. Music is just emotion, basically, because I know you've likely said things like, it's very difficult to actually pick a music, it's very difficult to choose a song, but a solution towards that is really just listening to different musics from different genres that you're interested in. Even just scrolling on the TikTok For You page, because there's lots of sounds there, a lot of things you can learn from. Start saving the sounds from the TikTok For You page, and then just start playing them as you're editing. Something I like to do when I have too many sounds that I want to possibly use in a video, literally what I do is I get Spotify open, then I'll play a song, and as I play that song on Spotify, I'll actually play the video on the editing timeline. So I'll basically have the Spotify music kind of lowered, but the actual editing timeline, I can hear it perfectly. So that way I can see if the music actually complements the edits. So then I'm not having to download the video before I actually know if I want to use it or not, because then it's just a waste of time. So always keep this in mind. All it is, sound effects as well as music, all it is just emotion. You just want to emotionally manage the viewer. That's all you want to do. Because if you see some of the best videos on TikTok, videos where people are like, this is so beautiful or whatever, or if you go through the comment sections and people are like, wow, I relate to this a lot, or wow, this made me feel very sad, there's reasons for that. And a large part is because of the music they're using, the sound effects. So just keep that in mind, it's super important. Next thing I'm about to talk about is pacing. So pacing, quite simply because I've seen some definitions of pacing, which I believe they're kind of wrong. The actual definition, from my experience, the way I think about it, is the speed at which the video progresses. So that's why I think pacing is simply just the speed at which a video progresses. What that means is how fast is your hook, how fast is the middle, and how fast is the end. If you break down a video, it's literally like a story. Hence, we're talking about storytelling. You have a beginning, you have a middle, and you have an end. That's like the three core elements to any good story, any great story. And that's basically what pacing kind of modifies. Pacing is like speed management, if you want to think about it that way. Because you want to determine how fast you want the hook, how fast you want the middle, and how fast you want the end. And you'll kind of come to these conclusions based on the idea of the video. What's the actual message of the video? And how is the person delivering that message? For example, is it a very big message? Is it something that's very out there, something like super grand or whatever? And then, in addition, is the person, the way they're speaking, are they speaking in a fast manner? For example, in fact, take Hassan as an example, because Hassan, in some of the clips that he does, he talks very fast. So with that in mind, you can pace your videos faster to where the edits are faster, the B-roll is faster, you're using a faster music with faster beats, you're making the sound effects faster, you're making the visual effects faster, the transitions faster. If Hassan is talking really fast, then match the speed at which he's talking with pacing. Whereas if he's talking maybe slower, maybe if he's in a more, say, reflective mood or something like that, slow down the video. Make sure that it's well paced. Make sure that it's not as fast as, say, a talking head video if you can talk really quickly. So in other words, slow down the transitions, slow down all the effects, make the video just more calmer. You want to match the, how should I say it? You want to match the way the speaker's talking, their energy based on the editing. The energy of the speaker, translate that to the editing. That might seem a little esoteric, but what I'm trying to say is just match the speed at which someone's talking with the edits, the transitions, all that stuff that you're doing. And you're gonna find pacing to be pretty good. Another way too to practice pacing, because some people, they just naturally struggle at this, so a way that you can practice pacing yourself is basically watch really good content. I'm gonna say this a lot, and I'll just say it until you religiously do this, but always just watch really good content. Find some time, watch good content. For example, go on YouTube. In fact, don't just go on YouTube, you can do that if you want to, but ideally use a study list, watch the creators on the study list. Some of them have YouTube channels, watch their YouTube channels, watch their vlogs, see how they pace the video. See how in the vlog there's different moments where the video gets kind of fast and then the video gets slower. or watch their TikToks. Notice how they have different TikToks. Maybe one of the TikToks, they're talking about some product that they just bought. They're super excited. So they're talking faster, the editing's faster. Maybe on a different video, they're recalling some story in high school that they had. And maybe it's a sad story, so they're talking slower. The editing is more calm. It's not all these effects. You're gonna understand these things, that it's all intentional. That's what I want to keep driving home. It's all intention. That intention kind of went off the board. It almost went off the board, but basically, it's all intentional. They're all doing this for a reason because it leads back to storytelling. That's why they're doing it. If you study all the best creators, they all do storytelling in some type of way. They won't say this, but if you really look deep, if you read between the lines, as people like to say, you're gonna see that it's all just storytelling. So, last thing to talk about is color grading. So color grading. This is something that I'm still practicing myself. If you don't know what color grading is, it's essentially just changing the colors to appear nicer on screen. So that's all color grading is. It's just changing the colors so it appears nicer on the screen. And there's a few reasons why you want to do this. So I'm gonna write those reasons right now on the whiteboard. Hope you guys took these notes because I'm about to erase this right now. I need to get like an actual like eraser because I'm just using like this paper towel. But anyway, what was I just saying? Yeah, so color grading. So there's a few, what was I saying? There's a few reasons why people do it. So we're gonna write them down right now for color grading. So, a few reasons why people do color grading. Write these down, very important. First one, the original footage looks bad. So that's one reason why people do color grading, is simply because the actual footage itself, it just does not look that good. So they just want to make sure that the footage, it looks better. So it's a very simple reason as to why people do it. The footage might just look super diluted, super dried out, and some people, they just do not want that. So if you just change it up to where it doesn't look as dried out, as diluted, you can turn up the color saturation. Let me write that down. Turn up color saturation to not make the video as diluted, as dried out. So that's one way to like improve the color grading and just why people do it. Another reason is because people want to tell a specific emotion. That's another reason people do color grading, is because with color grades, you can kind of like modify people's emotions. That's why people do it. Because, for example, with colors that are usually warmer, so for example, a color like red, this is a pretty warm color. Actually, green's not a warm color, but let's take red for example. A color like red, this is like, I guess you can interpret this in a lot of ways. So you might as well take like, for example, the color blue. I don't know if you guys see this. I don't know if you see that well, but basically the color blue, my wall right here, blue is typically associated with a colder color tone, and blue kind of evokes a more calm feeling, sometimes an even sad feeling. For example, if it's straight black, like for example this jacket right here, that's usually a more like negative feeling, like generally. So the reason why people do coloring, one of the reasons, color grading, is so you can evoke a specific emotion, which all just goes back to storytelling. So yeah. Then another reason, just give you one more, just so it's not like too many reasons to get overwhelmed. Another reason that people do color grading is simply because they want to make the footage have special moments. So another reason is because people want to have the footage. They want the footage to have special moments. So, for example, in some of the vlogs I've done with Hassan, I've used certain color grading of certain parts just to kind of highlight different things. And it's just something pretty important to do. Maybe something you don't want to do all the time, because if you keep flickering with the color grading, it can get kind of like annoying to look at. But that's kind of one reason. Some people just want like different stuff going on. So yeah, but that said though, that's like why people do color grading. So a few things, like practical things you can actually do when it comes to color grading for storytelling and short form content. First thing, turn up color saturation by 0.1 to 0.25%. So that's what I do. I usually do in that range, because then the colors are not looking so like fake in a sense, or so like animated to the point where it just looks unnatural. Because again, this goes back to a few things I've seen, because like in the money niche, I've seen a lot of videos where people, they really turn up the color grading. You're probably doing this as well, where you really turn up the color grading, yet like it's just not looking good because you don't understand the nuances of why they're doing it and actually how to do it. So a very simple way to do this is to just turn up color saturation at 0.1 to 0.25%. Super easy way to do it, very clean. Another way to kind of do color grading is mess with sharpness by a little bit. So I put this in caps, mess with sharpness by a little bit, because like I said, something you're probably doing is you're really turning up the sharpness. For example, you'd see it on the taped videos, all this stuff, but it's just not turning out good because you're missing some elements to actually make it in that format. So just turn it up a little bit. It just makes things look more defined, makes things look like more raw in a sense, more, I guess, kind of natural, because you're just making things look more alive, more appealing. So yeah, that's 2 ways. I'm trying to think if I have another way that could really work. Yeah, I got one more way. This can apply in certain situations, but apply blur. So that's one more way to like mess with color grading. If you have a moment in your video where it's like there's a certain story going on, a good way to kind of highlight that it's a past memory is add some blur to the video. That's something I like doing sometimes. I've done it too overboard at some points, but one way to kind of evoke a past memory, for example, if Hassan's talking about a past experience, put some B-roll, and then on that B-roll, like highlight, so basically mask out a point on his face, and then just put like blur around it. So then you just focus on his face, then everywhere else is blur, and it kind of evokes that like feeling of like a memory. So yeah, those are like 3 ways to like practically apply color grading. So yeah, hopefully you do that. So that basically said, that is it when it comes to storytelling. And just to wrap it up before questions, like I said, storytelling is quite simply just storytelling. It's quite simply just describing sequence of events. Describing sequence of events. And because you're doing it through video, it's literally through video editing elements. So that's basically all storytelling really is. And I guess another way to think about it, which is something I got from Hamza's YouTube course, which is actually pretty good, I want to share with you, is known as Storyacting. So that's another thing that he talked about. Just wanted to share that right now. Okay, so Storyacting. So Storyacting, this is something, an idea that Hamza was talking about in one of his YouTube courses. If you don't know Hamza, like the self-improvement YouTuber, so basically in this course for like his Adana school thing, he talked about how like there's this thing known as story acting, where it's basically instead of telling a story, like for example, you talking like you did this, blah, 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 instead you actually show like the actual act. He was talking about in the sense where you use your hand gestures and all this stuff, but basically the way I just thought about right now, when it comes to video, story acting can be simply using intentional B-roll plus VFX or visual effects to portray, oh that looks bad, to portray what's happening. So yeah, I literally just came up with that on the spot, but basically story acting when it comes to short form content, it can be simply just using intentional B-roll and visual effects to portray what is happening. So like I said, this ties back to one of the earlier points of contextual B-roll, because it's very important, because it literally shows the viewer what's going on. People would rather see what's going on instead of being told what's going on. They actually want to see what's going on. They want to engage their eyes. So that said, that's basically it when it comes to storytelling. Hope you learned something. That said, are there any questions?